The Cobalt Leviathans are a loyalist space marine chapter founded in the 38th millennium from the gene seed of the White Scars. The Cobalt Leviathans are known for their nomadic nature and brutally swift method of combat, not unlike their progenitor chapter. The tribes, companies, of the Cobalt Leviathans are always on the move, choosing instead to have their homeworld defended only by the Ocean Guard, Ahuna, serfs, and Togi, neophytes of the chapter. Led by a lone Vasa Ngaru, bearing the title of Lord of the Triumvirate, they are entrusted with the greatest responsibility and the hardest burden to defend their hearth and home, the fortress monastery, Pakari. That is not to say that the tribes of the Cobalt Leviathans do not return home, for at the end of every campaign they return to tell their deeds through ritual chant, preserving the oral tradition of the chapter and of the homeworlds. While carving these stories across the stars fighting for the Imperium, each tribe must find their own road to glory. Having been given full discretion by their Rangatira, chapter master, all Capitani, captains, forge a path of their choosing, being the ones to solely decide when and where to dispense the Emperor's justice. Most Capitani choose to follow the tides of war and the Ethereum towards their next battle, and by doing so, the tribes of the Cobalt Leviathans still honor their people and their way of life. The chapter is aimless in their waging of war though, for each Capitani at the conclusion of a campaign will begin their search anew, for as soon as their pilgrimage to the Pakari is complete, the tribes will once again depart for the stars. Not long after their founding did the Cobalt Leviathans find themselves thrust into the crucible of galactic conflict. Setting out from Mars, the newly formed Cobalt Leviathans found themselves lost in a freak warp storm, disorientating their navigators and leaving the fleet flying blind. Making an emergency translation, the whole of the newly formed chapter was displaced close to the world of Cypra Mundi. By the grace of the Emperor, they found there the Ultramarines and White Scars, preparing to reinforce Corellia and its surrounding worlds against Warmaster Abaddon and his 13th Black Crusade. Without even hesitating, Rangatira Aleki contacted the two first founding chapters and pledged his forces to join in the counter-offensive to reclaim the system from the forces of chaos. Expecting to face overwhelming forces, both the Ultramarines and the White Scars agreed to allow this new chapter fight alongside them, so it was for their first campaign that Cobalt Leviathans found themselves fighting alongside their progenitor chapter, the White Scars. Eager to prove themselves to both the White Scars and the Imperium as a whole, the Cobalt Leviathans thrust themselves through the hardest fights they can find, carving their place as Adeptus Astartes with the blood of traitors and heretics. As the campaign progressed, the Marines of the Cobalt Leviathans found their stride developing a style of combat that they would claim was all their own. Leaving the tanks, troop transports and terminators in the center of their forces, they would bait their foe into committing a full attack on their seemingly slower and more exposed troops. It is then, with the foe committed, do the fast-moving elements of the Cobalt Leviathan's forces swoop in from both flanks and ambush their foe. Seeing that their younger kin fought in ways similar to their own, the White Scars often sent squads to aid in these flanking attacks, lending the strength necessary to shatter the spine of any ambushed foe. As the purge continued, a clear bond formed between the two brother chapters, many friendships formed, and working in tandem a great number of heroic victories occurred. However, by the campaign's conclusion, there was not a member of either side of the conflict that did not know the name Rangatira Aleki, first chapter master of the Cobalt Leviathans. With Abaddon the Despoiler leading his forces away from Corellia, his control of its more chaotic elements waned. Without the War Master's guiding hand, the demons of chaos ran rampant, seeking their own glory or to carry out their own nefarious plans before they were banished back to the warp. Free of his oath for a time, Gigath led his Khornate army on a hunt to find the White Scars and either turn or break them. Catching them in preparation, the army of Khorne charged into the heart of the White Scars' gathering lines. So it was that without any warning, the great Khan Nassan found his forces in a beta melee with the demon's forces. Preparing to order his men to fall back, the Khan paused, hearing something new. Over the clamour of combat, a battle chant none had heard before drummed its way across the field. By the blood of the Khan, defend our kin! Then, like a wave upon crashing to a shore, the Cobalt Leviathans descended upon the foe. Striking swiftly from behind the demon's lines, they come to their brother's defense. Not a moment too soon, for the great bloodthirsty Gigath had forced his way to the forefront of the melee, and Nasan, Great Khan of the White Scars, found himself battling a foe he couldn't fight alone. Spotting his plight, Aleki rode his bike into the towering side of Gigath, choosing to abandon his noble mount to save the fellow chaptermaster's life. The distraction proved efficient, for as Gigath turned to howl in outrage and pain, Nasan severed its head from torso, slaying the fiend. With their lord sent back into the Immaterium, the remainder of demonic army too was sent screaming back into that twisted realm once more. As a thank you for riding out to their aid, as well as to cement the bond between brother chapters, the great Khan Nasan gave Aleki a gift, the Blade of the Sea and Sky. This relic blade's unique shape mirrored the very sigil of the Cobalt Leviathan's first company, and the great Khan knew that it was destined to reside with their successor brethren. From that day on, every Rangatira has wielded this blade in defense of the Imperium. Founded during the 23rd founding, the so-called Sentinel founding, the Cobalt Leviathans were intended to become a crusading chapter like many others during that era, and during their first years after creation, this was the case. Spending only a standard sole decade as a crusading force, the fate of the Cobalt Leviathans would change forever with the rediscovery of the Gertis system and its surrounding worlds in the Segmentum Pacificus. By edict of the High Lords of Terra, the chapter was retooled to protect the Imperium's interests in this newly reclaimed area of the galaxy. Continuing on, as if the discovery was never made, the chapter spent their time crusading, while Magus Biologis found a suitable world for the Cobalt Leviathans to claim as their own. The Emperor truly smiled upon the chapter as an exploratory fleet found something truly unique within the system, a trio of oceanic death worlds bound together by interlocking orbit, one of the few stable tribal orbital bodies to exist in the universe. Testing of the populace began immediately upon the discovery of the trio, for it was the fleet's task to find a final home for the Cobalt Leviathans. As time passed, all three worlds were found to share a genetic purity and an aggressive nature brought on by the harsh tribalistic lifestyle of the people, all of which would be needed should the Cobalt Leviathans claim these worlds as their home. Upon the testing completion, the Adeptus Mechanicus began their plans to build the future fortress ministry of the Cobalt Leviathans. While some of the technology was brought from Mars itself, the forge world of Volmus was given the honor to complete the undertaking. 120 standard years would pass as the Adeptus Mechanicus constructed not only a suitable fortress ministry for the chapter, but a modified Ramillies-class star fort, nesting the latter in the heart of the three planets' celestial dance, where it could serve as a dry dock and forward base. Finally, the day had come and the Cobalt Leviathans were called back from their crusading in the Segmentum Pacificus to see their new home. For the first time since their battle versus the arch-enemy, the whole of the chapter was located in one location. Brothers who had not seen each other in close to 200 years came together once again to tell their victories, mourn the lost, and meet their newest brothers. Descending to their new fortress ministry and the world surrounding it, the Marines of Cobalt Leviathans found what they had been missing for so long, a place to call home. The trio of worlds that the Cobalt Leviathans call home are truly shining jewels in such a dark galaxy, for not only is this triumvirate of worlds rare for their odd orbital pattern, they have even a more unique aspect to them. The three are all ocean worlds. That is not to say that these worlds are a paradise, for as with all the worlds of their kind, the dark below and what lies within is enough to fill normal mortals with a sense of terrible foreboding. This feeling is well-founded, for in the cold, crushing depths, all manner of monstrosities lurk forever seeking new prey. It is these Leviathans of the depths that have led the Imperium to classify the trio as death worlds. Given this nature, it truly takes a hardy people to survive, let alone thrive against the cruel mistress that is the ocean and her children, for one can only be truly safe from these monsters should they find themselves on one of the few land masses scattered among the never-ending waves. Due to being scarce commodity, these safe havens have caused no small amount of conflict among the human settlers on each of the worlds. These people were quick to learn, however, that whenever battle broke out between two tribes, both sides suffered. for to survive in their harsh homeland, tribes needed to always be ready to battle the ocean and her children, for neither cares if their prey is weakened, only that it is consumed. This need to maintain a tribe's number causes the peoples of Acor, Solus and Astoria to seek out new avenues on how they warred on one another. To this end, great summits of all the tribes on each world were called to find a better solution. It was from these collectives that the various rituals that would come to be known as Masni Fesui were formed. Once per cycle, every tribe gathers on the largest island of their respective world to put forth one warrior to fight on their behalf in single combat. With these youths selected, the main event of the Masni Fesui begins. A tournament among the chosen, each battling for the right to exchange lands or goods. To maintain that no tribe faces oblivion due to one warrior's mistake, only fair exchanges may be made between the two tribes, for honor dictates that no tribe should take advantage of another. And while a fair exchange is set and will be upheld, the loser of the contest by unspoken tradition is expected to give slightly more than what was agreed upon to the victor in difference to their loss. As the battles continue on, and the warriors still victorious dwindle in number, the amount each exchange is worth grows, until eventually the tribe with the last warrior standing holds the right to the very land that these battles were fought on. It is then that Masni Fesui comes to an end, and the tribes part ways once more, heading for their newly exchanged lands with their hard-won goods. That is all but the victors, for they alone are allowed to stay on the island to reap the bounty that is held within. It is due to the brutal nature of personal combat that Masni Fesui brings out the best in already hardened youths, giving the chapter a glimpse of what this raw talent could become. With this intent in mind, the Cobalt Leviathans support this tradition, sending a member of their order to oversee and moderate the proceedings. This task falls to the guardian of the Triumvirate, a member of the Vasa and Garu, the chapter's spiritual and mystic guides, for he is not there to only moderate, but to observe and select the best youths for the chapter. The sacred duty has imprisoned every cycle on each of the worlds to monitor the Masni Fesui. A member of the Vasa and Garu is always chosen for the role of the guardian of the Triumvirate, for only they can peer into a man's soul to see what he is truly made of, all his hopes, dreams, and desires laid bare with a single look. Of the few thousand combatants across 3 worlds that attend, only 100 are chosen, with the Vasa and Garu taking any who prove their worth in body and soul. It is not unheard of, however, for a young warrioress to be chosen by the Vasa and Garu, and while these brave women cannot be inducted into the ranks of the chapter itself, those that pass the test of spirit are not left behind. Instead, they are taken along with the young men to the Pakari and handed over to the Auna, serfs, to begin their own path. For while the men begin the trials to become true neophytes of the chapter, the women are trained in the defense of the Pakari, or how to command within the chapter fleet. As such, it is not unheard of for the truly exceptional among them to ascend to the rank of shipmistress, commanding some of the mightiest battle barges within the chapter's fleet. Classified as ocean death worlds, Acor, Solus and Astoria seem to dissuade humanity's existence, as such the men and women who live on their surface are tempered and hardened. A life hard lived, the people of the Triumvirate know little in the way of luxury. Instead, the struggle to survive keeps them constantly on edge. While there is little truth in the rumors that a child born on these worlds wields a weapon as soon as they can walk, it is not that far off the mark. Living a nomadic life, the people of the Triumvirate find themselves fighting daily against the terrors that lurk in the depths of their worlds. Constantly staving off attacks on fishing expeditions, or as their tribes traverse the wide ocean waves, the culture of the Triumvirate revolves around that of the warrior. Young or old, man or woman, all are expected to defend the tribe from any attack that may come its way from the Leviathans that lurk within the depths. With this harsh ocean-faring lifestyle, a written language was never developed. Instead, a deep oral tradition was formed, passing on the history and teachings of the tribe. It is expected that all members of the tribe know their history, for the dead can only live on in the afterlife if someone still holds on to their memory. To craft their floating communities, the people of the Triumvirate must use the only abundant source of material on their worlds, carcasses of slain Taniwa or monster. In the crushing depths of the world's Acor, Solus and Astoria live a great number of monstrous creatures of various shapes and sizes. Great fish and reptiles seemingly pulled from ancient Terran myth and history swim within these great oceans on all three of these worlds. While not truly comprehensive, some of these creatures include sharks, hydras, kraken, batoids, and various reptiles that seem to appear in ancient Terran myth and history, such as Helicoprion, Dunklosteus, Tylosaurus, and Archelan, to name a few. Upon the surface of Acor on the microcontinent of Kuatu, the Adeptus Mechanicus built the home of the Cobalt Leviathans, the great fortress ministry, Pacari. Taking inspiration from the oceans themselves, the interior foregoes the standard imperial use of straight lines and hard edges. The whole of the Pacari seemingly flows together. Smooth curves and gentle lines allow the whole upper portions of the fortress to look like an ocean wave frozen in time, while below the ground the chambers and rooms that comprise the rest of the Pacari are made in segmented spheres, with some chambers even protruding into the ocean depths themselves. Within these submerged chambers is where battle brothers can seek solace and guidance from the members of the Vasangaru. While the Marines of the Cobalt Leviathans call the Pacari home, they make good use of their secondary in-system base. In the vacuum of space, at the true center of the triple orbit of Acor, Solus and Astoria, is the Waiea, forward base of the Cobalt Leviathans. It is from this uniquely modified Ramillies-class starfort that the Cobalt Leviathans gather their fleet and range out, seeking the foes of the Imperium, bringing to them the Emperor's justice. Much like their progenitor chapter, the White Scars, the Cobalt Leviathans follow the Codex Astartes in structure but not combat doctrine. Seeing the Codex as a set for guidelines, the Cobalt Leviathans have been known to change its tactics to comply with their own personal style of fighting. Other deviations from the Codex Astartes consist of placing their tribe sigil, company markings, on the right pauldron, and the unique rank called a Vasangaru, a combined rank of both the chaplain and librarian. A unique formation to the Cobalt Leviathans, the Vasangaru serve the dual purpose of being both chaplain and librarian. Utilizing their talents to peer into the souls of men, they can see what they are truly made of, laying bare any corruption that may be found within. It is for this reason that they are sent out to find new recruits for the chapter, weeding out the impure of heart and soul. Due to this special role, any Vasangaru has the power to call upon a few unique abilities. Nature's Tempest. The Vasangaru summons hurricane force winds of Astoria around his feet that bear him aloft, allowing him to fly across the battlefield. Ancestral Bond. Summoning the souls of the chapter's fallen, the Vasangaru calls upon their wisdom to guide his brother's aim, be it with bolter or blade. Ocean World's Undertow. Calling upon the deep currents of Acor, the Vasangaru drags down any caught in its path. Emperor's Gaze. Peering into the soul of a creature, the Vasangaru judges their worth. Should they be found wanting, the Vasangaru snuffs out their life force, ending their existence. By encompassing the role of both chaplain and librarian, the Vasangaru takes on two major roles within the chapter, that of the Keeper of the Soul and Keeper of the Chant. The Keepers of the Soul. These members of the Vasangaru focus only on maintaining the purity of the chapter's soul by any means necessary. While all members of the Vasangaru can and will take on some of this burden, the majority falls to those that dedicate themselves to this order. The Keepers of the Chant. Being rich in tradition, the Cobalt Leviathans do not keep written records of their deeds, believing that it cages the soul of their words. Instead, the call of honor as well as lists of the fallen are passed on by ritual chant. It is these chants that Vasangaru of this order memorize. No detail can be missed, for to do so would insult those that came before them. It is the job of the Keepers of the Chant to tell the tale of their tribes when they return home after campaign. Along with these specialist roles, Vasangaru, much like the librarians of other chapters, use methods to attempt to divine the future. While others use the Empress Tarot, the Vasangaru of the Cobalt Leviathans utilize sealed orbs containing blessed water from Acor, Solus and Astoria. These spheres are called Luminae and are used to read the waves within the Ethereum. Upon their arrival, the young aspirants brought to the Pakari are organized immediately into 4 new tribes, often with rivals being assigned together in the same tribe as an attempt to erase grudges of the past and form closer bonds for the future. It is in these tribes that they will build a home at the brothers' bivouac, establishing the groundwork of camaraderie among the aspirants. Being presented with multiple carcasses of Leviathans from the deep, with instructions to build themselves a shelter, it quickly becomes a special location within the Pakari, for here multiple tribes of Togi, at various stages of implantation, live, work and train together. To the casual observer, it is easy to spot the newest Togi's shelter, for they tend to be basic shelters, with more thought to the individual instead to the tribe as a whole. As time goes on, however, these structures take on a more permanent look and are clearly meant for multiple people to live and train together. As they train and learn together over time, the tribe will receive their first of the gene seed implants, finally becoming true neophytes of the chapter. Continuing through their training, all but the final 2 gene seeds are implanted into the young Togi, the progenoid glands and the black carapace. The former will only be implanted should the neophyte succeed in the trial of Roppongi, and the latter after serving as a scout marine within the tribe of the Archilon and being chosen for elevation to full battle brother. Holding to their warrior culture, the marines of the Cobalt Leviathans favor fast attacks and brutal melee combat. Such is their love for the brutal brawl of combat that most brothers refuse to embark on a mission without some sort of close combat weapon on their person, be it combat knives, chain axes, or thunderhammers. The desire to engage their foe face to face leads many to assume at first glance that the only tactic that the Cobalt Leviathans employ is speeding into melee. For many, this is the last mistake they ever make. While appearing to charge into combat with reckless abandon, should one see the movements for what they truly are, they would notice an intricate pattern of hit and run. Constantly weaving in and out of formation, the Cobalt Leviathans harry their foe into the position that they desire by engaging in a constant game of cat and mouse. Mounted marines moving in to harass the foe, only to turn away after a few moments, trying to draw them out into a position of the chapter's choosing. For as their mounted brothers turn away, those charging forward on foot or in the back of transports surge forward to meet the foe. Inevitably, this draws out more and more of their enemy, who seek to overwhelm this force of dismounted marines. Thus engaged, few hear the cry of "Kara," with few still ever realizing what is about to happen, as suddenly the riders who had harried the foe before return. Having circled around in a spiraling pattern, the riders of the Cobalt Leviathans find themselves breaking through exposed flanks and the back of the enemy, who sought to eliminate their slower brethren. One of the most sacred trials among the chapter is the trial of Roppongi, the final test before Togi become scout marines and are elevated into the 10th company, or tribe of the Archilon. This trial only takes place when a tribe returns home after a campaign, allowing those that are lacking the final 2 gene seed implants to prove themselves. Their task: to track and hunt a Daniwa in its home territory, the depths of the ocean. To this end, every Togi is provided a weighted vest, a simple breathing apparatus and a bone spear, and sent walking into the sea under instructions to return in victory, or not at all. While unique in execution, this is not a new task for the Togi, for their old tribes hunt the Daniwa that inhabit the homeworlds, using them for both food and construction materials. When a tribe hunts, however, they do so with no fewer than 60 members, sturdy boats and bait to draw the quarry into the reefs or sandbars. Setting out in their tribes of 20, they march onward along the ocean floor, beginning the hunt for the creatures that dwell below. While 4 tribes will descend into the deep, on average only 2 tribes will ever return home, the rest having been slain in the attempt. Upon a successful hunt, the Togi that return to the Pakari are then given the progenoid glands implant and are elevated to the tribe of Archilon as true scout marines. It is then that they assume the role of the chapter scouts across the battlefields of the Imperium. Only after further distinguishing themselves will a scout marine receive the black carapace and become a full battle brother. The Cobalt Leviathans share in their beliefs of their Primarch, venerating the Emperor as the ultimate uniter of mankind, but not as a god, and so they do not hold the Imperial Creed as their faith. While never openly showing contempt for those that do worship the Emperor as a god, they hold a great distrust for the Ecclesiarchy, believing that the Ecclesiarchy holds greater power than is within their right. Like the founding chapter, the White Scars, the Cobalt Leviathans maintain a deep connection with the natural elements, believing it is through these powers their strength and power stem from. They maintain certain rituals and rites to keep the favor of these spirits. Being a proud and naturalistic chapter, the thought of never feeling the wind on one's face or smelling the salt of the oceans is revolting. It is for this reason that the internment within a dreadnought sarcophagus is never forced upon a Tarku. Instead, only those who can still volunteer are placed within these sacred machines. Those too far gone are granted the Emperor's mercy instead. Called Malola, or Living Death, the Tarku who request to be interred are seen as both wanted heroes and condemned souls. For it is believed that those who walk the path of the Malola will never feel the ocean spray and smell its breeze, even after passing over to the next life. Like the people of their ocean homeworlds, the Cobalt Leviathans believe that to write something down is to capture its soul. The act alone is seen as selfish, for while the soul of the thing will then serve you, it prevents others from gaining the power of the story. As such, within the records of Cobalt Leviathans, no written word is preserved. Instead, vox recordings and ritual chant communicate the history and story of the chapter.